Amy, we're here, and I don't want to delay another second. We've got a very special guest here on Top Line from the state of South Dakota, Senator John Thune. Thank you for joining us.
Jonathan, great to be with you, and I was really impressed that Amy could kill your mic. I wish we could figure out how to do that. That was really effective.
Yes, Amy, I was trying to jump in there. It was really impressive.
Yeah. Listen,
so
I got the control button.
But before we get to what's happening around here, there was a story. There's a story out today. I'm sure you saw it. The Justice Department and their conferences, $16 muffins at these conferences they're having, cups of coffee for $8.24. Has Washington got it yet?
You would think not. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that just makes Americans really cynical. And you hear it and I hear it. But you get outside of this city, out in the real world, and that's what people are responding to. And that's why approval ratings are so low for Congress and generally for Washington, D.C., Jonathan. I think that's very frustrating to most Americans, and that's the kind of thing they want to see ended, and they want to see it ended now.
Have you ever had a $16 muffin?
Boy, I'll tell you what, I don't know where you could find a $16 muffin. You certainly you could probably get a 16-pack in South Dakota for, half of that, but anyway.
It's just nuts. So I want to ask you, the big news, you are now running for leadership here. I mean, you are leader, you're going up a rank. Lamar Alexander is not going to run. That fourth slot in the third slot in the leadership is open. You're running. Do you really want the job?
Well, I do. I think it's an interesting job, and Lamar will be a tough act to follow. He's been very effective, I think, in helping us communicate our message, not only here but across the country. And I think it's going to be an important year. 2012 is an election year, obviously, and so there's going to be a lot of political overtones. But it's also really important for us as Republicans here in Congress to get the things that we're doing, our agenda, across with the American people, and that's really what the job entails.
But it's a place with a 12% approval rating. You will now officially be a card-carrying member of the Republican establishment in Congress if you win this race.
Right. Yeah. Well, and you can't presume anything, these leadership races around here. I'm running for it, obviously, but if successful, I only have one direction to help take us up.
Yeah,
and we've only got room for improvement here. We are, yeah, exactly. It is. And there's tremendous cynicism and frustration, I think, with the political process in this country today, and we've got to change that. And I think part of it is going to be going out with a positive, proactive agenda that convinces the American people that we're serious, that we have gotten the message about getting spending under control and about growing the economy and creating jobs.
Well, Senator Thune, I want to bring you in on that point exactly, which is a lot of Americans now very frustrated about what they're seeing in Washington, especially when it comes to jobs and the economy. There's been a lot of talk since the president put his deficit plan forward that it's not going anywhere, that it's just politics. Do you think, Senator Thune, that we are going to see anything resembling a jobs bill, something that's going to American public can look at and say, this is Congress working on the issue I care about the most, by the end of the year?
Hard to say, Amy. I think that if you look at what the special committee is doing right now, they're focusing on trying to get the $1.2 trillion in spending target achieved, but they're also, they've got a mandate to look at other things. They could look at tax reform, they could look at entitlement reform, both of which I think would be really important in terms of sending signals about, the degree to which we take the loss of jobs in this country seriously. My guess is that Congress will at the same time hopefully be multitasking, looking at other things that we can do. The big question is, how do you do it? And the president's put his approach out there, but as you know, most Republicans would disagree with the approach that he's taken, and I hope that we can find some agreement on some issues, but it's going to involve, in our view at least, dealing with the issue of overreaching regulations, dealing with the issue of taxes, getting the trade bills moved, and getting government spending under control. Those are the things I think that would rally Republicans around a plan up here if the president were willing to go there.
But he's put some stuff on the table that Republicans, traditionally think would like. I mean, the payroll tax cut extension, incentives for small businesses. I mean, even this whole infrastructure bank. I mean, you guys like infrastructure spending if it's done right. Anything in here from his plan?
Well,
you can support
if it's done right. I mean, the infrastructure bank's a really bad idea for states like South Dakota, but that's not something I would be in favor of. But I am supportive of a long-term authorization of the highway bill, which I do think is important because that is a lot of jobs, and we've got a lot of infrastructure needs in this country. So I hope we can get something along those lines done. I think the payroll tax stuff is something that may may get some Republican support. I've not been a big fan of that because it's just short term, and I think it really does confuse the issue of the payroll tax, which is supposed to be dedicated to Social Security and general revenues. It really blurs that distinction, and I think that what we ought to be looking at are policies that are long-term in their orientation, that provide predictability and certainty for businesses. I was meeting with a group of business leaders this morning, and that's the message that comes across loudly and clearly. And I don't think that most of what the president's attempting to do accomplishes that objective. It's very short term. It may help a little bit in terms of GDP next year, but it's not going to get us back on track to really get the economy humming again.
And Senator Thune, before we let you go, we got to talk about politics, of course, for 1 second. There's a presidential primary on your side. Rick Perry talking about Social Security, called it a Ponzi scheme. Mitt Romney is going after this very hard. Do you think that Rick Perry has a Social Security problem? Can he win in the general election given his past statements on this issue?
I think it's just the real issue right now, for, at least in my view, I think for him, Amy, is to be able to articulate what he would do to fix it. I think most people acknowledge that Social Security, you know, if you look at its the actuarially, they would tell you this, it's not viable for future generations. You know, he's characterized it perhaps differently than I would, but it's got a major problem. It needs to be reformed, and I think what people are going to want to know is what are you going to do to fix it, and is it going to protect benefits for people who are retired today? I think that's going to be the big issue.
And actually, there's one other very quick last one. You're running for this number 3 slot. The whip is open also after John Kyle retires. Are you going to run for that as well?
You know, I haven't made any decisions long term.
But you don't rule that out?
The near term. Well, I don't think you rule anything out. You just never know what's going to happen around here. And nobody saw this thing with Lamar's announcement coming. And so I think you have to be, you know, keep your options open and think about where you can serve your conference and your country the best.
All right, Senator Thune, thanks for coming on Top Line. And
Thanks,
Amy,
Jonathan.
I'm going to run
Thanks,
as well.
Amy.
Thanks for opening my mic finally. I appreciate it.
You're very welcome. All right. Thank you, Senator.